My dear devotees, gather close. I see in your eyes the same question that has burned in the hearts of seekers for thousands of years. Master, how do I know if I am making real progress on the spiritual path? How can I tell if my breakthrough, that moment of divine realization, is truly approaching? This is the cry of every sincere soul. You meditate faithfully, you pray with devotion, you study the scriptures, yet sometimes you feel as though you are walking in darkness, wondering if God even hears your calls. You ask yourself, am I just fooling myself? Are these practices really working? When will I finally experience that divine communion I long for so deeply? These doubts are natural, my children. Even the greatest saints have walked through valleys of uncertainty. But today, I want to share with you 7 unmistakable signs that your spiritual breakthrough is not only possible, it is near. These are not mere theories from books, but truths I have witnessed in my own journey and in the lives of countless devotees who have walked this sacred path. In this video, we will discover 7 crucial signs your breakthrough is coming. If you enjoy this video, give me a like and comment your thought below. I love to read all of it. Let's analyze together. The first sign, your desires are naturally simplifying. The first sign that your breakthrough approaches is a beautiful simplification of your desires. You may notice that things which once seemed so important, the latest fashions, the biggest house, the most impressive job title, begin to lose their grip on your heart. This is not because you have become indifferent to life, but because your soul is beginning to taste something far sweeter than material pleasures. I remember a devotee who came to me years ago, a successful businessman who owned multiple companies. He was deeply troubled because he found himself caring less and less about expanding his empire. Master, he said, I used to dream of nothing but making more money and buying bigger things. Now I find myself wanting only to sit in meditation and feel God's presence. Am I becoming lazy? Am I losing my ambition? I smiled and told him, my son, you are not losing anything. You are finding everything. When the soul begins to awaken, it naturally gravitates toward its true source of happiness. The moth no longer desires the candle flame when it discovers the sun. This simplification happens gradually. You might find yourself preferring a quiet evening of meditation to a loud party. You may discover that a simple meal eaten with gratitude brings more satisfaction than an elaborate feast consumed in distraction. Your conversations begin to turn toward deeper topics, the meaning of life, the nature of love, the mystery of existence. This is not renunciation forced upon yourself through willpower. True spiritual progress never comes through suppression. Instead, it is a natural flowering, like a tree that stops reaching for shallow puddles when its roots finally touch the underground river. Your desires are not being destroyed. They are being fulfilled at their source. The second sign, challenges become your teachers. The second sign of approaching breakthrough is a fundamental shift in how you perceive difficulties. Instead of seeing problems as punishments or obstacles, you begin to recognize them as perfectly designed lessons from the divine teacher. This transformation in perspective is profound. Where once you might have asked, why is this happening to me? You now find yourself asking, what is this trying to teach me? The difference between these two questions is the difference between victimhood and discipleship. I have watched devotees go through tremendous trials, loss of loved ones, financial hardships, health challenges, relationship difficulties, and emerge not bitter, but deeper. They discover that every challenge contains within it a specific spiritual lesson that could not be learned any other way. Consider the devotee who loses his job. Initially, there is fear, anger, perhaps even despair. But as his spiritual understanding deepens, he begins to see that this apparent setback is actually pushing him to develop greater faith, to trust in divine providence, to discover inner resources he never knew he possessed. The job loss becomes not a tragedy, but a graduation to a higher level of spiritual maturity. This does not mean you become passive in the face of difficulties. You still take appropriate action, You still use your intelligence and skills to navigate challenges. But underneath all your outer efforts, there is a deep trust that everything, absolutely everything, is conspiring to awaken you to your true nature. When you reach this level of understanding, you actually begin to feel grateful for your challenges. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you recognize that each difficulty is a divine chisel, carefully sculpting away everything that is not your true self. The third sign, your intuition becomes crystal clear. The third sign that breakthrough is near is the development of clear, reliable intuition. This inner knowing becomes so strong and accurate that you begin to trust it more than your reasoning mind or the opinions of others. In the beginning stages of spiritual practice, intuition comes in flashes, brief moments of inner knowing that are often drowned out by the noise of mental chatter and emotional turbulence. But as you progress, these flashes become steadier, like a radio signal that grows stronger and clearer as you tune in to the right frequency. You begin to know things without knowing how you know them. You sense which path to take before your mind has analyzed all the options. You feel drawn to certain people, places, or opportunities with a certainty that transcends logical explanation. Most importantly, you develop an unerring sense of what is spiritually beneficial for you and what is not. I recall a devotee who was offered a very lucrative job opportunity. On paper, it seemed perfect: more money, better benefits, higher status. But something deep inside her said no with such clarity that she could not ignore it. Against the advice of family and friends, she declined the offer. Within weeks, she was offered a different position that paid less but allowed her to serve others in a meaningful way. Years later, she discovered that the first company had been involved in unethical practices that would have compromised her spiritual values. This inner guidance system becomes so refined that you can sense the spiritual vibration of people, places, foods, books, and activities. You naturally gravitate toward influences that elevate your consciousness and avoid those that drag it down. This is not judgment of others, but simply a natural attunement to what serves your highest good. The fourth sign, you experience spontaneous states of joy. The fourth sign of approaching breakthrough is the appearance of spontaneous joy that seems to bubble up from nowhere. This is not happiness dependent on external circumstances, but an inner effervescence that arises from the depths of your being. These moments of causeless joy are glimpses of your true nature. They come unexpectedly, perhaps while washing dishes, walking in nature, or sitting quietly in meditation. Suddenly, you are filled with such overwhelming love and bliss that tears may come to your eyes. You feel connected to everything and everyone, as if the boundaries between yourself and the universe have temporarily dissolved. At first, these experiences may last only seconds or minutes. You might dismiss them as imagination or emotional fluctuations. But as your spiritual practice deepens, they become more frequent and longer lasting. You begin to realize that this joy is not something you create through effort, but something you uncover by removing the layers of worry, fear, and desire that normally obscure it. One devotee described it beautifully. "Master, it's as if I've been living in a house with all the curtains drawn, thinking the world was dark. Then suddenly, someone pulls back a curtain and I see that the sun has been shining brilliantly all along. The light was always there. I just couldn't see it." This spontaneous joy is different from pleasure or excitement. Pleasure depends on getting something you want. Excitement is often mixed with anxiety about losing what you have gained. But this deeper joy is completely independent of circumstances. It can arise even in the midst of difficulties, like a spring of fresh water that bubbles up regardless of the weather above ground. The fifth sign, your compassion expands naturally. The fifth sign that breakthrough is approaching is a natural expansion of compassion. You find yourself genuinely caring about the welfare of others, not because you think you should, but because the artificial boundaries between self and other are beginning to dissolve. This compassion is not sentimental or emotional. It is a clear recognition that all beings are expressions of the same divine consciousness that you are discovering within yourself. When you see someone suffering, you feel it as naturally as you would feel pain in your own hand. When someone experiences joy, their happiness resonates in your heart as if it were your own. This expanding compassion manifests in practical ways. You become more patient with difficult people, recognizing that their challenging behavior comes from their own pain and confusion. You find yourself naturally wanting to help others, not to gain merit or recognition, but simply because helping feels as natural as breathing. I have seen devotees who were once quite self-centered gradually transform into beings of tremendous kindness. They begin to see the divine spark in everyone they meet: the grocery store clerk, the difficult neighbor, the homeless person on the street corner. This is not a forced practice of trying to love everyone, but a spontaneous recognition of the underlying unity that connects all life. One devotee told me, "Master, I used to divide people into categories, those I liked and those I didn't, those who were useful to me and those who weren't. Now I see that these divisions were just illusions created by my limited perspective. Everyone I meet is another face of the same divine consciousness I am seeking within myself." The sixth sign: synchronicities multiply. The sixth sign of approaching breakthrough is a dramatic increase in meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. Life begins to feel less random and more orchestrated by an intelligent, loving force that is guiding your spiritual evolution. You might think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they call you that same day. You face a particular challenge, and exactly the right book, teacher, or opportunity appears to help you. You ask for guidance and meditation, and the answer comes through an overheard conversation, a billboard, or a chance encounter. These synchronicities are not mere coincidences. They are signs that you are coming into alignment with the divine flow of life. As your ego will begins to surrender to divine will, you find yourself in the right place at the right time with increasing frequency. It's as if the universe is conspiring to support your spiritual growth. I remember a devotee who was struggling with a deep spiritual question about forgiveness. For weeks, she meditated on this issue without finding clarity. Then, in a single day, she encountered 3 different situations that all pointed to the same lesson about letting go of resentment. A stranger in line at the coffee shop was reading a book about forgiveness. Her taxi driver shared a story about reconciling with his estranged brother. That evening, a friend called to apologize for an old hurt. She realized that the universe was teaching her through these coincidences. As these synchronicities multiply, you develop a deep trust in divine guidance. You begin to understand that you are not navigating life alone, but are being lovingly guided by a wisdom far greater than your individual mind. This trust allows you to relax your grip on trying to control every outcome and instead flow with the current of divine will. The seventh sign: you feel increasingly detached yet more loving. The seventh and perhaps most profound sign that breakthrough is near is the development of what seems like a paradox. You become increasingly detached from outcomes while simultaneously becoming more loving and engaged with life. This detachment is not indifference or emotional numbness. Rather, it is a profound inner freedom that allows you to give your best effort to everything you do while remaining peaceful regardless of the results. You care deeply about your work, your relationships, and your service to others, but you are not anxiously attached to specific outcomes. This state of consciousness allows you to love more purely because your love is no longer contaminated by need, fear, or expectation. You can love your family without trying to control them. You can serve others without requiring gratitude or recognition. You can pursue your goals with enthusiasm while remaining equally content whether you succeed or fail. One devotee described this beautifully. "Master, I used to love people because of what they gave me. Attention, approval, security. Now I find myself loving them simply because love is my natural state. I don't need them to be different than they are. I don't need them to love me back. I love because that's who I am, not because of who they are." This detached love extends to your relationship with your own spiritual progress. You continue to meditate, pray, and practice with dedication, but you are not anxiously measuring your advancement or comparing yourself to others. You trust that your sincere effort, combined with divine grace, will naturally lead you to your goal in perfect timing. The sacred moment of recognition. My beloved devotees, when these 7 signs begin to appear in your life, when your desires simplify, challenges become teachers, intuition clarifies, joy arises spontaneously, compassion expands, synchronicities multiply, and detached love develops. Know that you are approaching the threshold of a great spiritual breakthrough. But remember this crucial truth. The breakthrough itself is not a destination you reach, but a recognition of what you have always been. You are not becoming divine. You are remembering your divine nature. You are not acquiring something new. You are uncovering what was always present beneath the layers of illusion. The spiritual path is like cleaning a mirror. The mirror's capacity to reflect light is not created by the cleaning. It was always there. The cleaning simply removes the dust and grime that prevented the mirror from showing its true nature. Similarly, these practices and signs are not creating your divine nature. They are revealing it. So be patient with yourself, dear ones. Trust the process. Continue your practices with devotion, but without desperation. The very fact that you long for God is proof that God is already calling you home. The very fact that you recognize these signs means you are already much closer to breakthrough than you realize. Your breakthrough is not just near, in the deepest sense it has already happened. You are simply awakening to what has always been true. You are, and have always been, one with the divine. The journey is simply the process of removing everything that seems to contradict this eternal truth. May you walk this path with courage, patience, and unwavering faith. The Divine Mother is always with you, guiding each step, celebrating each victory, and loving you unconditionally through every challenge. Your breakthrough is not just possible, it is inevitable, for you are already that which you seek.